The stars had witnessed too much death. For 800 millennia, the Galactic Confederation and the Pelnaga Empire had torn at each other's throats, neither gaining true advantage. Countless worlds reduced to ash, entire species extinct, and still the war raged on. On the Confederation command ship Eternal Vigilance Commander Sung stared at the battle reports with eyes that had seen too much bloodshed. The holographic display showed the latest engagement: red dots for Confederation ships, blue for Pelnaga vessels. Most of both colors had winked out during the battle. 4 cruisers lost for their 5, he muttered. Another day, another meaningless exchange of lives. His second-in-command, Officer Min, nodded silently. She had been born on a border world, had lost her family to Pelnaga bombardment when she was just a child. But after 50 years in service, even her hatred had dulled to weary resignation. The war had always been, and always would be. "The Council wants our assessment by morning," Sung said, rubbing his tired eyes. "What should I tell them?" "The truth," Min replied. "That nothing has changed since last week, or last century." A soft tone interrupted them. The communications officer, a young man named Da, turned from his console. "Commander, we've received an unusual transmission. It's from humans." Sung frowned. Humans were newcomers to the galactic community, having achieved faster-than-light travel barely 2 centuries ago. They occupy a small cluster of stars far from the war front, and most veteran officers considered them irrelevant to the greater conflict. "What do they want?" Sung asked. "They're offering help," Day said, surprise evident in his voice. "They claim to have developed technology that could end the war." Min scoffed. "Every generation thinks they'll be the one to end the eternal conflict. Let me guess, they've built a bigger gun." "No, sir," Day replied. "They say they built only one ship. It's called the Nemesis *. 3 days later, the Confederation Defense Council gathered in their underground chamber on Bastion Prime. 30 beings from 20 species sat in tiered seats around a central projection area. Some were old enough to remember strategies from 10,000 years ago, while others were relatively new to the Council, serving mere centuries. Admiral Kim, the Council elder, called the session to order. Her scales had long ago faded from vibrant green to pale jade with age, but her voice still commanded respect. "We face the same question we have faced since the founding of this council," she began. "How to break the stalemate with the Pelnaga. Our latest offensive in the Proxima sector ended as they always do, with roughly equal losses on both sides. General Lee, a stocky human-like being with 4 arms, activated the central projection. Battle statistics materialized in the air: ships lost, personnel casualties, resource expenditure. The numbers were staggering, yet utterly routine for the Council. However, Lee continued, we have received an unexpected offer of assistance. The projection shifted to show a sleek vessel unlike the bulky warships of either the Confederation or Empire. It was smaller than a standard destroyer, with smooth lines and no visible weapons emplacements. This is the Nemesis *, a human warship, Lee explained. According to their representatives, it operates on principles neither we nor the Pelnaga understand. They claim it can end the war. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Skepticism, hope, confusion, all mixed together. "Humans?" questioned Counselor Wan, his antennae quivering with doubt. "They've barely learned to leave their home system. What could they know of our war?" "Perhaps that is precisely why they might help," offered Counselor Jin, one of the few who had advocated for closer relations with Earth. "They see with fresh eyes what we have become blind to through familiarity." Admiral Kim raised a clawed hand for silence. "The ship will arrive tomorrow. Its captain is a human female named Una Park. We should hear what she has to say before dismissing their offer." The following day, the Nemesis * entered Confederation space. It moved unlike any ship the monitoring stations had ever tracked, seeming to flicker in and out of reality as it traveled. When it finally docked at Bastion Prime's orbital station, security teams stood ready, unsure what to expect. Captain Unipark was not what they had anticipated. She was smaller than most Confederation species, with dark hair pulled back tightly and eyes that seemed to miss nothing. She wore a simple dark uniform with minimal insignia and carried no visible weapons. "Thank you for receiving me," she said as she stepped onto the station. Her translator rendered her words perfectly into standard Galactic. "I understand your skepticism." Commander Sung had been assigned as her escort. "Captain Park, with all due respect, this war has lasted 800,000 years. The Pelnaga Empire controls 10,000 star systems. The Confederation defends 12,000 more. Both sides have fleets numbering in the millions. And you bring one ship." Park smiled slightly. "Sometimes the smallest key can open the largest door, Commander." As they traveled to the surface, Park gazed out at the scarred planet below. Bastion Prime had once been a beautiful world, but millennia of serving as Confederation headquarters had left it heavily fortified and industrialized, its natural features long ago sacrificed to military necessity. "Your war has consumed so much," she observed quietly. "It's not our war," Sung corrected her. "It's simply the war. It has always been." "Nothing is forever," Park replied. "Not even conflict." The council received her in their chamber, a rare honor for an outsider. Captain Park stood in the center of the projection area. 30 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy studying her with varying degrees of curiosity and doubt. "Captain Park," Admiral Kim began, "you claim your ship can achieve what 800 millennia of warfare could not. The Council requires more than words before committing resources to your proposal." Park nodded. "The Nemesis doesn't operate like your warships. We don't seek to outgun the Pelnaga. We seek to change the fundamental equation of the conflict." She raised a small device, and the chamber's projection shifted to show the interior of her ship. The council members leaned forward, suddenly interested despite themselves. The technology was like nothing they had seen before. "Quantum displacement drives," Park explained. "Probability shields. Temporal disruptors. But our most powerful weapon is information." "Information," scoffed Counselor Wan. "We have gathered intelligence on the Pelnaga for longer than your species has existed. Yet you've never seen their homeworld," Park countered. "You've never pierced the heart of their empire. The Nemesis can take me there. And when I return, this war will end." A heavy silence fell over the chamber. The idea was audacious, perhaps insane. "And why would humans care about our ancient conflict?" asked Admiral Kim, her ancient eyes fixed on Park. "Because if this war continues, it will eventually reach Earth," Park answered simply. "And because 800,000 years of death is enough." The council debated through the night. Arguments raged, alliances shifted, ancient prejudices surfaced, and were put aside again. When morning came, they had reached their decision. The Nemesis would attempt what no Confederation ship had ever achieved: a direct mission to the Pelnaga homeworld, the mysterious center of the enemy empire. As Captain Park returned to her ship, Commander Sung walked beside her. "The Council has approved your mission," he said, "but few believe you'll succeed." Park smiled. 800,000 years is too long, Commander. Sometimes it takes an outsider to see the path forward." As the Nemesis prepared to depart, the crew of the Confederation station watched with a mixture of hope and resignation. Few expected to see the human ship again. Yet for the first time in living memory, something new had entered the eternal equation of war. The Nemesis hung in space like a dark arrow, its hull absorbing rather than reflecting the light of Bastion Prime's sun. On the bridge, Captain Unipark sat in her command chair, reviewing mission parameters while her small crew prepared for departure. "Final systems check complete," reported Lieutenant Ta, her tactical officer. His fingers moved swiftly over the control interface. "Quantum displacement drive at full capacity." Park nodded. "And our guests." "Admiral Du has just boarded with his staff. answered Officer Jin from communications. They're being escorted to the conference room. Park stood, straightening her uniform. The Confederation had insisted on sending a small delegation aboard the Nemesis *. Officially, they were observers. Unofficially, they were there to ensure the humans didn't betray the Confederation's trust. When Park entered the conference room, Admiral Du was examining the ship schematics displayed on the wall. He was tall and thin, with deep blue skin that had paled with age around his eyes and mouth. "Impressive vessel," Du said without turning. "Though smaller than I expected." "Size isn't everything, Admiral," Park replied. The Nemesis * was built for precision, not brute force. Du turned, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. 800,000 years of war has taught us that brute force is the only language the Pelnaga understand. Perhaps that's why the war has lasted so long, Park suggested. "You've been speaking the same language for too long." The Admiral's mouth tightened. "You humans are young. You think yourselves clever for seeing simple solutions to complex problems. Sometimes problems persist because everyone thinks they're too complex to solve," Park countered. Their conversation was interrupted as the ship's second-in-command, Commander Jun, entered. "Captain, we're ready for departure." Park nodded. "Admiral, you and your team should secure yourselves. The initial displacement can be disorienting for first-time travelers." Minutes later, the Nemesis * began its journey. Unlike Confederation ships, which tore through space with visible energy fields, the Nemesis * simply seemed to blur, then vanish, reappearing light years away in an instant. In the observation lounge, Admiral Du gripped the support rail, his skin several shades paler than before. Beside him, his aide looked positively ill. "What was that?" Du managed to ask as Park entered. "Quantum displacement," Park explained. "Instead of moving through space, we move space around us while simultaneously shifting our quantum signature to avoid detection." "Impossible," muttered Du's science officer, a being named Hack with a large cranium covered in sensory nodules. "The energy requirements alone are handled by our core," Park finished for him. "A technology we developed independently." Du's eyes narrowed. "Why would Earth share such valuable technology with us? What do humans want in return?" "Peace," Park said simply. "The war has already consumed thousands of civilizations. Earth would prefer not to be next. And you think your single ship can accomplish what billions of soldiers over nearly 1,000,000 years could not?" Du's translator couldn't fully capture the bitter mockery in his tone. Park's expression remained calm. "Admiral, if you hit the same wall with the same hammer for 800,000 years without breaking through, perhaps it's time to try a different tool." Later, in the ship's mess hall, Park shared a meal with her core crew. The 12 humans aboard the Nemesis * represented Earth's finest, not just in military training, but in diverse expertise. "The Admiral doesn't trust us," observed Dr. Ba, the ship's scientist. "Her specialties included quantum physics and xenobiology. Can't say I blame him." Lieutenant Ta shrugged. "Trust isn't required. Results are. We need some level of cooperation," Park reminded them. "Remember, our mission isn't just to reach the Pelnaga homeworld. It's to end this war." "About that," Dr. Ba said hesitantly, "I've been analyzing the historical data the Confederation shared. The event that supposedly started this war, the destruction of the Pelnaga colony on Kirith, something doesn't add up." She projected data onto the table surface. "The radiation patterns from the catastrophe. They're consistent with a natural stellar event, not a weapons signature." A heavy silence fell over the table. "You're saying the war began because of a misunderstanding?" asked Officer Jin. "I'm saying we should investigate further," Bay replied cautiously. Park nodded slowly. "Keep this information within our crew for now. If you're right, it changes our approach considerably." 3 days into their journey, the Nemesis * encountered its first challenge. The ship had entered a region of space that marked the informal boundary between Confederation and Pelnaga territories. Pelnaga patrol detected, announced Ta from his station on the bridge. 3 warships at bearing 227.4. Admiral Du, who had insisted on bridge observation privileges, stepped forward. They've seen us. Standard procedure is to activate weapons and prepare for engagement. We don't follow standard procedure, Park replied calmly. Engage displacement shroud. The Nemesis seemed to fade slightly, becoming translucent before settling into a state that wasn't quite invisibility, but something more complex. What are you doing? Demanded Du. They'll still detect our energy signature. No, Park corrected him. They'll detect an energy signature, but it will read as ambient cosmic radiation. We've shifted our quantum profile to match the background universe. On the main viewer, they watched as the Pelnaga vessels passed by, completely unaware of the Nemesis hiding in plain sight. Du's expression was one of grudging admiration. In 800,000 years, neither side has developed true stealth technology. Both sides have been too busy building bigger weapons, Park observed. That evening, Admiral Du requested a private meeting with Park in her ready room. Captain, I must know the truth, he said without preamble. What is Earth's real interest in this conflict? Park considered him for a moment. Survival, primarily, but also perspective. Humanity has had its share of long conflicts, but nothing approaching the scale of this war. We see its madness clearly because we haven't been numb to it by hundreds of thousands of years of participation. And you truly believe your ship can end it? Du pressed. I believe we can create an opportunity for peace, Park replied. Whether your people and the Pelnaga take that opportunity is beyond my control. Du was silent for a long moment. My great-grandmother, he finally said, was a peace advocate. She believed the war continued because both sides had forgotten how to exist without it. The council had her executed for treason. Park didn't respond, letting him continue. I volunteered for this mission because I wanted to see you fail, Du admitted, to prove that this war is truly inevitable. And now? Park asked quietly. Du's 4 eyes focused on her. Now I'm no longer certain. Your ship has already achieved what our engineers said was impossible. Perhaps there are other impossibilities waiting to fall. As Admiral Du left her ready room, Park turned to the ship's computer. Computer, update mission parameters. Original objective remains, but add secondary objective. Confirm Dr. Baz's theory about Kirith's destruction. The computer acknowledged the command as Park stared out at the stars. The Nemesis was venturing into territory no Confederation ship had successfully penetrated in hundreds of thousands of years. They were carrying technology neither side in this ancient conflict understood. And they were pursuing a truth that might shake the foundations of the longest war in galactic history. Captain to bridge, came Ta's voice over the comm. We're approaching the Pelnaga defensive perimeter. You should see this. Park took a deep breath and headed for the bridge. The unexpected alliance between humans and the Confederation was about to face its first real test. The Nemesis slipped through space like a shadow between stars. For 2 weeks, it had navigated deeper into Pelnaga territory than any Confederation vessel had managed in over 500,000 years. The ship's quantum displacement technology confused enemy sensors, making it appear as nothing more than a temporary energy fluctuation whenever briefly detected. On the bridge, Captain Park stood before the main viewing screen, studying the dense field of Pelnaga defense satellites that protected the approach to their inner systems. Can we pass through undetected? She asked. Lieutenant Ta frowned at his sensor readings. Not with standard displacement. The grid is too tight. Satellites are positioned specifically to detect quantum fluctuations. Admiral Du, who had grown increasingly impressed with the human vessel despite his initial skepticism, joined them at the forward console. No Confederation ship has ever penetrated this defense network, he said. This is where your mission ends, Captain. Park smiled slightly. Lieutenant Tay, activate the phase harmonic system. Ta nodded and entered a complex sequence of commands. The asterisk nemesis asterisk hummed with a different tone as its engine shifted to a new configuration. "What is this technology?" asked Du, his four eyes blinking in sequence. "Instead of avoiding their detection grid, we'll synchronize with it," Park explained. The asterisk nemesis asterisk will vibrate at exactly the same frequency as their sensor network, essentially becoming part of the background noise they expect to see. Du stared at her. That should be impossible." "Humans specialize in the impossible, Admiral," Park replied. The asterisk nemesis asterisk approached the satellite grid. For a tense minute, the bridge crew held their breath. A single satellite turned slightly toward them, its sensors probing, before returning to its standard sweep pattern. "We're through," announced Ta, the relief evident in his voice. In the ship's science lab, Dr. Ba continued her analysis of the Kirith disaster that had supposedly started the war. The data was fragmentary. 800,000 years had corrupted many of the original records, but a pattern was emerging. "Captain, you need to see this," she called over the comm. When Park arrived, Bai projected a three-dimensional model of the Kirith system as it had existed before the catastrophe. The Pelnaga colony was situated on the third planet, Bai explained. Historical records claim Confederation forces bombarded it from orbit, killing millions. But look at the star. She highlighted the system's sun, then ran a simulation showing unusual stellar activity. This star was unstable, a type known to experience sudden radiation bursts. According to my calculations, such an event happened just before the colony's destruction. Park frowned. "You're saying the colony was destroyed by a natural stellar event, not a Confederation attack." "The radiation signature matches," Ba confirmed. "And there's more. I found fragments of Pelnaga communications from that period. They initially reported a solar catastrophe, before later records changed to blame a Confederation attack." "Someone rewrote history," Park said quietly. "On both sides," Ba added, "because Confederation records from the same period show a gradual shift from confusion about Pelnaga accusations to acceptance of responsibility and counterattacks." Park's expression hardened. 800,000 years of war based on a lie. Or a misunderstanding that hardened into hatred, Ba suggested. After the first few thousand years of fighting, the truth wouldn't have mattered anymore. The asterisk nemesis asterisk continued its journey inward, passing dead worlds that had once been thriving Pelnaga colonies before Confederation attacks had reduced them to lifeless rock. Other planets showed signs of massive military installations, with fleets of warships in orbit. Admiral Du spent hours in silent observation of these worlds. "I grew up learning about our glorious victories in these sectors," he finally said to Park. "They never showed us images of what was left afterward." "War consumes everything eventually," Park replied. "Even the truth." 3 days later, they encountered their first serious threat. A Pelnaga patrol ship detected an anomaly in the asterisk nemesis asterisk displacement field and moved to investigate. "They're locking weapons," warned Ta. "All stop," ordered Park. "Power down non-essential systems. Reduce our signature to minimum." The asterisk nemesis asterisk went dark, drifting silently as the massive Pelnaga warship approached. It was 5 times their size, bristling with weapon emplacements. "They're scanning us," reported Officer Jin from communications. "Standard protocol would be to open fire once they confirm we're not Pelnaga." Park turned to Admiral Du. "Admiral, your knowledge of Pelnaga ship configurations might be helpful here." Du studied the enemy vessel. "That's a Sunseeker-class destroyer. Their ventral sensors are their weakest point. If we could create a distraction." "Ta, prepare a quantum echo probe," Park ordered. "Target coordinates 43 Mark 7, relative to the enemy vessel." The tiny probe launched silently from the asterisk nemesis asterisk, traveling several kilometers before activating. When it did, It created a perfect quantum duplicate of the asterisk Nemesis asterisk, a ghost ship that appeared suddenly on Pelnaga sensors. The reaction was immediate. The Pelnaga vessel turned and fired its main weapons at the decoy, the energy beams passing harmlessly through the illusory target. "Now," Park commanded. "Full displacement. Get us out of here." The asterisk Nemesis asterisk slipped away while the enemy ship continued firing at the fading echo. Within moments, they were beyond sensor range. "Impressive tactic," admitted Du. "Though it won't work twice. They'll adapt." "We only needed to work once more," Park replied, "when we reached their homeworld." As they approached the heart of Pelnaga space, the crew's tension mounted. Historical records about the Empire's home system were virtually non-existent in Confederation archives. They were truly entering unknown territory. "Captain," called Dr. Ba from her station, "I've completed my analysis of the Kirith evidence. It's conclusive. The colony was destroyed by a Class 9 stellar eruption, not Confederation weapons." Park nodded grimly. "Compile everything into a secure data package. We'll need it when we reach our destination." That night, unable to sleep, Park found Admiral Du in the ship's observation lounge, staring out at the unfamiliar stars. 800,000 years, he said without turning. Trillions of lives lost. Civilizations erased. All possibly because of a misunderstanding that no one bothered to correct. Or that someone deliberately obscured, Park suggested. War can be profitable for certain interests. Du looked at her sharply. "You think the war was intentionally prolonged?" "I think after a certain point, both sides needed the war to continue. It had become part of your identity, your purpose." Park sat beside him. "What would your civilization even look like without this conflict? Could it survive peace?" "I don't know," Du admitted, "but I'd like the chance to find out." The next morning, the asterisk Nemesis asterisk detected a massive energy signature ahead, a formation of stars artificially arranged in a perfect geometric pattern. "The gateway," whispered Du, his voice filled with awe. "The entrance to the Pelnaga home system. No Confederation vessel has ever seen this and survived to report back." Park took her command chair and straightened her uniform. "All stations, prepare for final approach. We're about to make history, or end it." The asterisk Nemesis asterisk moved forward, its systems humming at peak efficiency, carrying its small crew toward the heart of an empire that had been killing and dying for longer than humanity had existed. Ahead lay either breakthrough or destruction, with no middle ground possible. The asterisk Nemesis asterisk emerged from displacement at the edge of the Pelnaga home system. A star of unusual brilliance sat at the center, surrounded by 7 planets in perfect orbits. The fourth world, a massive blue-green sphere, was clearly the Pelnaga homeworld, encircled by orbital platforms and defensive installations more numerous than stars in a galaxy cluster. Captain Park activated the ship's internal chronometer. "Mark time," she ordered. 50 minutes begins now." The bridge crew tensed. Everything they had planned, everything they had journeyed for, would play out in less than an hour. Success or failure, there was no turning back. "We've been detected," announced Lieutenant Ta. His fingers flew across the tactical console, multiple enemy vessels changing course to intercept. Admiral Du moved to Park's side, his expression grave. "They'll have their entire home fleet here within minutes. No ship can withstand such firepower." "We don't need to withstand it," Park replied calmly. "We just need to survive long enough." Deploy quantum duplicates." The asterisk Nemesis asterisk shimmered briefly. Then where one ship had been, 50 identical vessels now appeared, arranged in a sphere formation. To Pelnaga sensors, they would all read as solid, real targets. "Incoming transmission," reported Officer Jin. From the Pelnaga command. A face appeared on the main screen, sharp-featured with pale yellow skin and eyes that seemed to glow from within. The being wore an ornate uniform covered in symbols of rank. "Unidentified vessels," the Pelnaga commander said, his words translated by the ship's computer. You have entered protected Imperial space. Surrender or be destroyed. Park stood, facing the screen directly. This is Captain Una Park of the Earth, ship Nemesis *. We come with critical information about the origins of your war with the Confederation. The Pelnaga commander's eyes narrowed. Earth, the primitive world. Your deception is poor. Confederation dogs. We are not Confederation, Park insisted. Scan our ship. Our technology is nothing like theirs. Before the commander could respond, Ty called out, 20 Pelnaga warships approaching. Time elapsed. 9 minutes. The connection cut as the Pelnaga fleet opened fire. Energy beams lanced through space, destroying several of the Nemesis duplicates. The real ship rocked slightly as nearby explosions disrupted local space. Shield status, Park demanded. Probability shields holding at 87%, reported Ta. Their weapons are impressive. Park nodded. Begin Phase 2. The Nemesis activated its primary defensive system, not a typical energy shield, but a field that altered the quantum probability of incoming attacks actually striking the ship. Most energy beams simply passed through harmlessly, their matter energy states temporarily out of phase with the vessel. Time elapsed. 15 minutes, announced the computer. The Pelnaga fleet had fully mobilized now. Over 100 warships surrounded the Nemesis and its remaining duplicates, firing continuously. The space around them bloomed with energy discharges and explosions as duplicate after duplicate vanished. They're adapting to our quantum signatures, warned Dr. Ba from the science station. Probability shields down to 64%. Park remained standing, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. Deploy the evidence package. Broadcast on all Pelnaga frequencies. Officer Jin worked quickly, broadcasting data on the Kirith catastrophe. Now, for several moments, the Pelnaga attack continued unabated. Then, unexpectedly, several of the enemy vessels ceased firing. They're reviewing our data, Jin said, surprise evident in her voice. Time elapsed. 23 minutes, noted the computer. A new transmission came through. A different Pelnaga official, older, with deeper yellow skin and ceremonial markings on his face. I am High Commander Kang of the Imperial Fleet, he announced. Your data is clearly falsified. Confederation weapons destroyed Kirith. This is known by all. High Commander, Park replied. The data speaks for itself. The radiation patterns match a stellar eruption, not weapons fire. Your own initial reports from 800 millennia ago confirm this. Kang's eyes widened slightly. How would humans access such ancient records? The Confederation shared what they had, Park explained. And we found the missing pieces in your own transmissions during our journey here. Time elapsed. 32 minutes, the computer announced. The High Commander's image disappeared, replaced by an even more ornate figure, robed in shimmering material with a headdress that seemed to contain living light. I am Emperor Song of the Pelnaga, the being stated, his voice carrying authority that transcended the translation. You dare bring these lies to our sacred home. Park bowed slightly, respectful but not subservient. Emperor, I bring truth that has been buried for too long. This war began with a natural disaster, not an attack. Preposterous, the Emperor hissed. Confederation forces were not present in the Kirith system when the catastrophe occurred. Park interrupted. Your own historical archives will confirm this if you look deeply enough. The Emperor's expression shifted subtly. And why would you, a human, care about our ancient conflict? Because it threatens to engulf my world next, Park answered honestly, and because no war should last 800,000 years, especially one founded on a mistake. Time elapsed. 40 minutes, the computer noted. The Emperor was silent for a long moment. You have penetrated our defenses with technology we have never seen. You could have attacked, yet you bring only information. Information is more powerful than any weapon, Park replied. It can end what weapons cannot. As if to contradict her words, the ship suddenly shook violently. Direct hit, Todd called out. Probability shields at 41%. Emperor, Park said urgently, I notice you've diverted your vessels to protect the ancient records facility rather than your palace. You already suspected the truth, didn't you? The Emperor's face revealed nothing, but his silence spoke volumes. Time elapsed. 47 minutes, the computer announced. Final phase, Park ordered, her voice steady despite the ship's continuous shaking as more hits broke through their defenses. Dr. Ba activated the ship's core technology. Not a weapon of destruction, but something far more powerful. A massive quantum field expanded from the Nemesis *, engulfing the nearest Pelnaga vessels. Within the field, time slowed to a crawl, giving the appearance that everything had frozen. Broadcast to all vessels, Pelnaga and Confederation alike, Park commanded. The truth must be seen by all. On every ship within range, on the Pelnaga homeworld, and through subspace relays to Confederation territories, the same images appeared. The original stellar data from Kirith, the initial reports correctly identifying a natural disaster, and the subsequent falsified records blaming the Confederation. Alongside these, the Nemesis * transmitted evidence of similar falsifications on the Confederation side, reports that had been altered to take credit for an attack they never performed, setting in motion the cycle of retaliation. Time elapsed. 50 minutes, the computer announced quietly. The quantum field dissipated. The Pelnaga ships, momentarily confused, held their fire. On the main screen, Emperor Song stared at Park with an expression impossible to read. 800,000 years, he finally said, his voice barely audible. Trillions of lives, countless civilizations, all because both sides chose to believe in an enemy rather than investigate a truth. Park finished for him. The question now, Emperor, is whether you will continue that choice. The bridge of the Nemesis * fell silent. The 50 minutes had passed. Now came the moment that would determine whether their mission had succeeded or failed utterly. Emperor Song looked away from the screen briefly, consulting with advisors off-camera. When he returned his gaze to Park, his eyes had changed. Something ancient and hardened had begun to crack. I will speak with the Confederation leadership, he said, not as enemies, but as investigators of this truth you have brought. Captain Park allowed herself a small smile. The Nemesis * is at your disposal as neutral ground for such discussions, Emperor. As the transmission ended, Admiral Du approached Park, his expression one of disbelief. 50 minutes, he whispered. 800,000 years of war, potentially ended in 50 minutes. Not ended yet, Park cautioned, but perhaps for the first time, truly beginning to end. 3 months after what historians would later call the 50-minute intervention, the Nemesis * hung in orbit around a small neutral moon in unclaimed space. Its quantum engines hummed quietly, maintaining position as shuttles from both the Confederation and Pelnaga Empire approached. Captain Park stood in the ship's main conference room, which had been modified to accommodate the historic meeting. A large circular table dominated the center, with the symbols of Earth, the Confederation, and the Pelnaga Empire projected above it in soft light. Are you ready for this? Asked Commander Jun, adjusting the collar of his formal uniform. Park nodded, her expression calm but her eyes revealing the weight of the moment. 3 months of preliminary talks have led to this, the first direct meeting between Confederation and Pelnaga leadership in 800 millennia. The first shuttle docked, bringing the Confederation delegation. Admiral Kim led the group, her ancient scales now seeming brighter since the peace process began. Behind her came Commander Sung, Admiral Du, and 5 other high-ranking officials representing the major species of the Confederation. Captain Park, Admiral Kim greeted with a formal bow. Once again, humanity surprises us. Before Park could respond, the ship's computer announced the arrival of the second shuttle. The room fell silent as the doors opened to admit the Pelnaga delegation. Emperor Song entered first, his ceremonial robes simpler than during their first encounter, yet still radiating authority. He was followed by High Commander Kang and 6 other Pelnaga officials. For a long moment, the two groups simply stared at each other. No living member of either delegation had ever been in the same room as their ancient enemy without weapons being fired. Park stepped forward. Emperor Song, Admiral Kim, thank you for accepting Earth's invitation to this summit. Please, be seated. As they took their places around the table, Park noticed how both delegations positioned themselves as far from each other as possible. 800,000 years of hatred could not be erased in 3 months. We have reviewed the evidence provided by the Earth vessel, Emperor Song began, his voice carefully controlled. Our most trusted historians and scientists confirm its accuracy. The destruction of Kirith was indeed a natural stellar event. Admiral Kim nodded stiffly. Our experts have reached the same conclusion. The Confederation never attacked Kirith. The initial response blaming us was in error. An error that cost trillions of lives, noted Commander Sung quietly. High Commander Kang's eyes flashed. Both sides perpetuated the error. Your people claimed credit for the attack in subsequent generations. Park raised a hand before tensions could escalate. The past cannot be changed, but the future is still unwritten. That is why we are here. She activated the table's central projector, displaying a document titled The Concordat of Earth. This is a framework for peace, Park explained. Not a simple ceasefire, but a path toward true reconciliation. It begins with 3 principles: truth, remembrance, and renewal. As the delegations reviewed the document, Park continued. Under truth, both sides will establish joint historical commissions to correct the record of the war. Under remembrance, memorials will be built to honor all who died in this conflict. And under renewal, territories will be demilitarized in stages, with Earth serving as neutral observer. For hours, they debated the terms. Old grievances surfaced repeatedly. Several times, delegates from both sides threatened to leave. But each time, they stayed, perhaps recognizing the historical magnitude of the moment. As the main conference broke for a recess, Park found Emperor Song standing alone by a viewport, staring out at the stars. Your people have achieved something remarkable, Captain, he said without turning. In just 2 centuries of space travel, you've accomplished what we could not in 800 millennia. We had the advantage of fresh eyes, Park replied, and perhaps the fear of watching your war eventually reach our world. The Emperor turned to face her. I've ruled for 7,000 years. In that time, I've ordered the destruction of countless Confederation worlds, as they have destroyed ours. How does one stop? How does one learn to exist without an enemy? Park considered this. One day at a time, I suppose. Building something is always harder than destroying it. When the conference resumed, the tone had subtly shifted. The delegates still sat apart, still regarded each other with suspicion, but there was something new in the room, a fragile, tentative possibility. Admiral Kim was the first to break the old pattern. She moved from her seat to one closer to the Pelnaga side. My great-grandmother, she said, told me stories of a time before she was born, when our people believed peace might be possible. I dismissed them as childish fantasies. Perhaps I was wrong. 1 year later, Captain Park stood on the surface of a once contested world that had been designated as neutral territory. Behind her, the Nemesis rested on landing struts, its mission long since complete but its symbolic importance still powerful. Before her stretched a vast memorial, not a celebration of victory or a monument to power, but a solemn remembrance of loss. Walls of dark stone stretched in every direction, inscribed with names, billions upon billions of names, representing just a fraction of those lost in the war. A small Pelnaga child approached her, looking up with curious eyes. Are you the human who ended the Great War? Park shook her head gently. No, little one. The war ended itself when both sides finally chose to see the truth instead of their weapons. The child considered this. My teacher says humans are dangerous because they think differently. Different isn't always dangerous, Park replied. Sometimes it's exactly what's needed. Nearby, a mixed group of Confederation and Pelnaga officials toured the memorial. Their interaction was still formal, still cautious, but no longer openly hostile. Small steps on a very long road. Admiral Du joined Park, watching the officials. There have been 17 violations of the Concordat in the past year, he noted. Minor incidents, but concerning. Did you expect 800,000 years of war to end completely in 1 year? Park asked. No, Du admitted. The pessimists in both governments predict we'll be fighting again within a decade. And the optimists believe it might actually work. Du turned to her. Which are you, Captain? Park smiled slightly. Neither. I'm a realist. Peace is hard work, harder than war, but worth the effort. As the sun set over the memorial, casting long shadows across the names of the countless dead, Park thought about the journey that had brought them here. One ship, 50 minutes, against 800 millennia of conflict. The Nemesis had returned to Earth months ago, its mission officially complete. But Park had requested this assignment, overseeing the implementation of the Concordat at the neutral zone. She wanted to see if the fragile peace would hold. A Confederation transport landed nearby, disgorging a group of civilians, the first to visit from their territory without military escort. At the same time, a Pelnaga shuttle arrived with a similar group. The two parties regarded each other nervously. Then a Pelnaga female stepped forward, offering a traditional greeting to the Confederation visitors. After a moment's hesitation, they returned the gesture. Park watched this small interaction with cautious hope. The war hadn't truly ended, not yet. Perhaps it never would, not completely. 800,000 years created wounds too deep to heal entirely. But something had changed. Something had broken in the endless cycle. A path forward had opened where none existed before. As night fell on the memorial world, lights illuminated the walls of names, a reminder of the cost of hatred and the price of misunderstanding. Park touched one of the walls gently before turning back toward her ship. The universe was vast, filled with dangers and possibilities. Humanity had found its place among the stars not as conquerors or victims, but as something perhaps more valuable. Peacemakers. Whether that role would last remained to be seen. But for now, in this moment, it was enough. The long war had not ended in triumph or defeat, but in something far rarer and more precious, understanding. And that, Park reflected as she walked away from the memorial, was worth any price.